Okay, so we're going to start with here, our next example. Again, we're checking slope, then our inside number, then for an outside number. So here, our slope, I see a negative, and there's not a slope number here, which tells me it's an invisible 1. So if our slope started at a value of 1 and it stayed a 1, is it going to get steeper or flatter? And the answer is neither. There is going to be no change to the slant of this line as far as it rotating. Now I want to look at the sign, and my sign went from a positive 1 for the parent function to a negative, which means yes, there is a reflection, but it's still at the same angle that it was before. It just flipped over the x-axis, so now it's a nice negative line. Okay, I had inside number. Yes, I have an inside number, -5, which means it's going to do the opposite of what I think. When I see -5, I'm thinking left 5, but it's got to do the opposite, so it's going to go right 5. And then outside means vertical. I can only move up or down with this outside number, which means it is going to go down 6 because it's going to do exactly like I think it should. Next, so there are the changes for this graph line from the parent function. Here, f of x equals 5/3 times the value of x plus 2. All right, my slope number, 5/3. All right, so I've got to think, is it getting bigger than 1? Did it get bigger than 1? Yes, 5/3 is bigger than 1, so it got steeper. And again, the reflection comes from the sign. It started as a positive slope. It is still a positive slope, so there is no reflection over the x-axis. IHOD, I'm looking for parentheses so I can see if there's a number inside, and I see no inside number. So there is not going to be any movement left or right. That did not change. And now looking at the outside number, the 2, that is going to be up 2 or down 2. Those are my only 2 options for this outside number. And it's going to do exactly what I think, so it's going to do up 2. Okay, now that you've looked at equations and identified the changes, can you go backwards? Can I give you the changes and you write the new equation? Okay, so I've got f of x is translated 11 units left and 5 units down, and then compressed by a factor of 3. Okay, compressed. This is going to be a clue that you are talking about slope, which means this number, 2/3, is your slope. So I want to ask you, if you have a slope of 2/3, is it going to make it get flatter, get steeper, or no change at all? And it's getting smaller, so it should be flatter. So you know in your graph picture, you are rotating towards the x-axis. All right, IHOD, do we have an IHOD number? We do. We are moving left 11 units. So this is telling me that I'm going to have a number inside the parentheses. Now, when we write that inside the parentheses part, I need to decide, is it going to be x plus 11 or x minus 11? And left makes me think minus 11, but I remember O in IHOD tells me the opposite, so I've got to do plus 11. Use these letters as memory joggers to help you figure out what you should do. And now I'm going to figure out, do I need to have a number outside the parentheses in my final answer for my equation? And I do, because I have down. I'm moving down, which tells me that is an over number, which means I'm moving up or down. And it's going to do exactly what I think. So after the parentheses, I'm going to have a number. Okay, is it going to be plus 5 or minus 5? And it's going to do exactly what I think. And since I'm moving down, that would be minus 5. So this is going to be after the parentheses, inside the parentheses, and then I'm going to make sure I have my slope of 2/3. So final answer, f of x equals, because I'm writing my equation, that's the final answer, 2/3. And now I want to put in my inside number, so it's going to be x plus 11, and then minus 5. And that would be my final answer. There's my equation, changed up with all of these transformations from the parent function. All right, next example. So, looking for slope. Okay, it doesn't tell me it's getting steeper or flatter, but it does tell me reflected across the x-axis, which means my slope is negative. Okay, so I know my final answer, my slope has to be negative. I just need a number. Okay, if it didn't tell me it's getting flatter or steeper, my number has to stay the same. There was no change, which means it's going to be a 1 because that's what it started with. Now I need to see if I have an IHOD number. Did it move horizontal, left or right? Oh, it moved 4 to the right, which means I'm going to have a number in the parentheses in my final answer. I just need to decide, is it x plus 4 or minus 4? And it's got to do the opposite, so right makes me think plus, but now I got to do the opposite, so minus 4. And then, do I have an up or down, a vertical, an over number? I do. I'm moving 6 units down, so that tells me that outside the parentheses I'm going to have a number. I just need to decide plus 6 or minus 6. And since it's down, it's going to do exactly what I think, plus 6. So now we're going to put all this together in our final equation. F of x equals, I got to write my slope, negative. We are not going to see the 1 in our final answer. We're just going to see the negative. Now I want to put x minus 4 to show that it moves 4 right. And now we're going to put the plus, I'm sorry, that should be a minus 6 because we're moving down 6, not up 6. All right, there's our final linear equation. All right, so here, if f of x equals 2 times the value of x minus 8 is translated 4 units up, what will be the resulting equation of g of x? Okay, so the only thing that's changing is that we are moving 4 units to the right, which is an horizontal IHOD, which means it's going to be inside the parentheses. I just have to decide if it's minus 4 or plus 4. So it's going to do the opposite of what I think, and right makes me think plus, so I've got to do the opposite, so it's going to be minus 4. Okay. Did it say the slope or it was moving up or down from this point? It did not say any of that was changing. So I know in my final answer for g of x, I have to keep the same slope. So I'm going to keep the 2. But I'm adding this moving to the 4. I'm adding this in IHOD number. And now I'm going to keep my outside number minus 8 the same. So there is my equation after we take this with a slope of 2 and a y-intercept of negative 8 and we move it right 4.